Welcome to the Pet Loss Companion. I'm Ken Dolan-Del Vecchio, and I'm here with my friend and co-author, Nancy Saxton-Lopez. Nancy and I wrote a book called The Pet Loss Companion, Healing Advice from Family Therapists Who Lead Pet Loss Groups. And that was based on many, many years, 30 plus years in Nancy's case, facilitating pet loss groups. And for past year and a half now, we've been doing this weekly program, which gives us an opportunity to bring some of the learning that we gained through the experience of those groups, and also since then in various clinical meetings, to you, and to generate a dialogue with you who are listening. So if you're listening live or if you are listening to the podcast, we'd very much like to hear from you. A lot of what we do is respond to audience member stories. And if you'd like to send us a story or a question or a suggestion for a topic or for a guest, we very much appreciate that. And you can reach me at kenddv@gmail.com. And you can reach Nancy at nsaxtonlopez at csmpc.com. That's nsaxtonlopez at csmpc.com. We would very much like for you to learn as much as you can and to share as much as you can with us. We'd like you to realize also that this program is a friend of Dakin Humane Society, which is one of the largest animal welfare organizations in central Massachusetts. And you can learn more about Dakin by going to dakinhumane.com. That's DAKINHUMANE.org, I should say, dakin.org. Also, Dakin sponsors a monthly pet loss support group over Zoom that I facilitate. It's once a month. It's generally on the second Tuesday of the month, but my travel schedule makes it so that this coming month, September, it will be on the 20th. And if you'd like to participate in that, you can participate from anywhere in the world. It's at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, the 20th. And there's no cost. You can go to dakin.org and go to the programs tab, or you can go to the link that is within our description. It'll get you right to the RSVP page. You can support our podcast by giving a donation, a gift through Venmo or through PayPal. You can subscribe also if you'd like to donate monthly. We invite you to do that. We certainly don't ask you to do that if it would be at all difficult for you. We do this as a labor of love, and we want very much for anybody who could possibly benefit to use the time that we deliver this program for hopefully some support. Also, you can subscribe on YouTube, and we do invite you to do that because if you subscribe, the number of subscribers as it builds, it alerts people who come to YouTube looking for pet loss support that this program exists. So the higher number of subscriptions there are, the more likely it's to show up on their quest for a supportive program. And so I think that's all for our intro today. And Nancy, you want to get us started?
Yeah, I mean, we've had quite a few folks reach out to us over the last few weeks, which I think is really nice because it's very courageous to talk about their grief and to share their stories with others. However, we do believe that sharing these stories is really helpful, not just for them, but for our audience and the people that are participating with us, because it is a ritual to write all of this down. And it really, I think, helps everyone emotionally to start that healing process. So tonight, I think it was a few weeks ago that Deb got to us about her beautiful Tessa, and I'm going to read her email. Thank you and Nancy, so this is to Ken, for the podcast on loss of a pet. I am one of the last people I thought would write to someone about this or listen to a podcast about my extreme grief, but here it goes. I am only a week and a half out from losing my sweet Tessa, almost 9-year-old mixed breed dog. She was only sick for 2 weeks. I noticed she was having problems with her back right leg, difficulty lifting it, dragging it a little bit. Of course, I called the vet, took her in on a Friday. He said he thought it was a bulging disc in her spine. I was to take her home, keep her immobile for 3 weeks, keep her crated if possible. I ordered a crate. She didn't like a crate when she was young, and I was sure she wouldn't like it now. But I wanted to do what was right for Tessa. I took her home with pain medication and an antibiotic. A week and a half later, it seemed to be getting worse,
Mm.
so I took her back in on a Monday. The vet stated again he thought it was a disc in the spine. He would like to do some x-rays, but the x-ray machine was broken. He upped her pain medication to take her home, and they would call when the x-ray machine was repaired. Tuesday morning, she could barely walk. I tried to take her out to go to the bathroom. She only made it to the front yard, but did her business. The vet called Tuesday to bring Tessa in on Wednesday. But by Tuesday afternoon, Tessa could not walk. I called back and begged them to let me bring her back in immediately. They did, and the first look by the vet, he knew something was wrong. However, still thinking it was a disc problem. Tessa was in immense pain. They referred us to a specialty clinic 2 hours away for the next day, which was Wednesday. By this point, it was late in the afternoon, about 5:30. I overheard the vet saying the specialty clinic is open 24 hours per day. Again, Tessa was in immense pain that was increasing by the moment. I was ready to go with her at that moment. All the all the arrangements were made. Um, we laid this 25-pound dog in the back of my SUV. Her eyes looked wild with pain. My baby was so miserable. I stopped once during the trip to look back on her. I thought she might have passed on my way, but she hadn't, and I was thankful. When I arrived at the specialty clinic, it was 8 o'clock. They were great, kind, and gentle, although I noticed all the Kleenex boxes. They called the doctor who recommended we keep her comfortable. They would do a special scan on Wednesday, probably surgery Wednesday afternoon, and I could pick her up by Friday. Although I had planned to stay, the vet's office stated there was no need to stay in town. All would be fine, and I could pick her up Friday. I drove home, getting home around 11:30 p.m., and cried all the way. However, I thought I was doing the right thing. My husband has multiple health issues and had a procedure scheduled for Wednesday morning. I had made plans for someone else to take him, but I had Tessa where she needed to be, so I took my husband for his outpatient procedure. While waiting, I received 2 calls from the specialty vet. The first, we were getting ready to do the scan and we'll call you afterwards. It will be about 2 hours. The second call, it's worse than we expected. It's bone cancer. I think they said it had spread. I'm not sure, as I didn't hear much after the bone cancer. I asked, what do you recommend? Euthanasia was the answer. I asked for 30 minutes to think, and I would call back. The tears flowed. I asked my husband, do you want me to get her to bring her home so you could say goodbye? He said, Deb, she can't make the trip. I got my husband home and left to make the 2-hour trip back to the specialty vet. I wanted to hold my baby. I didn't want her to be alone. When they brought her to me, she was crying. She wanted me. She reached out and touched me. I rubbed her ears and kissed her on her and loved on her and told her how much I loved her. The vet said, take all the time you need. I didn't want more time as she was in so much misery, so I held her as she peacefully passed. On August 3rd, 2022 at 3 p.m., my baby was gone. I drove home without her, crying the entire way. I walked into a quiet house, husband asleep, and no one to understand my pain. I had her cremated. I still don't have the remains. However, it's only been 11 days. I didn't intend to love Tessa like I did my first dog, Molly, who lived 16 years, but I absolutely loved her to the fullest. My husband hasn't shed a tear over Tessa. I don't understand how he couldn't miss her. The house is so quiet, it's painful. I'm afraid I will forget her touch and her smell. I fear that moving on is almost disrespectful of her love for us. Thank you for letting me write this part of my Tessa story. The pain is brutal. I can function best when I'm not home, but cry every morning and most nights. I keep her blanket just so I can smell her scent. I'm not sure my story is unique or can help others people's pain, but please feel free to share it if you want. Thank you for listening. So we hear
So
that enough, right? Or a lot.
yeah, yeah,
An animal gets sick quickly and dies.
yeah. It's worse than they think. The vet can't figure it out. I mean, one of the first points that arises for me in this story is that it emphasizes the fact that even the veterinarians don't have all the answers
That's
by
right.
any means. So this looked very much like it was a disc problem. It fit all the diagnostic criteria, I would imagine, and that's not at all what it was. It was something much more pervasive and something that was terminal. And so it's just a lesson for us, I think, always that we just don't know. We can't control all of the
Yeah.
variables. And the other thing that stands out for me in this story is how very differently these two partners grieve.
Mhm.
And so Deb is distraught, as many people are, at the loss of her beloved Tessa, and her husband doesn't appear to show any distress at all.
He's
And
not
yeah, he's
demonstrating
not
that.
demonstrating it. And she's just stating that as the way it is, which is a good thing because we don't know what's going on for him, and partners often grieve very, very differently. And as long as they're not disrespectful to one another's
Right.
grief, however it is, whatever it looks like, then that's the best you can do. And so she's another example of the kind of person who does everything possible
Yeah.
to take
Look at
care
how
of
much she drove, right?
yeah,
She
to take
drove
care
back
of
and
their
forth to that
friend.
specialty vet, that ear vet,
and
and she
and,
did
and
it with her heart, right?
yeah, and
She was
also she's her story is another example of how these things happen when everything else in life is going on too.
right.
So she has a husband who has, it sounds like, some
Medical issues.
medical issues. Those are a great focus for a really important focus for the family, and this is going on with Tessa at the same time, and that's the way life happens, right? There's just,
Yeah.
you never know when things are gonna change, and we just do the best we can. We juggle what we need to juggle to take care of the pressing needs of the moment, right?
It's interesting because I think about, obviously we do this work and we talk about companion animal loss and other types of loss for human loss all the time, and it could be a completely sunny day, right? But you walk out and your lens is gray, right?
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
you were such in despair and pain and sadness, right?
It's
And
almost
so
it's
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 like you're
almost
standing alone and everyone around you is just going about their day, their
yeah.
business. Right?
And if it's a beautiful day, it can make it even more painful
Yeah.
because of the just how alone and out of sorts that can make you feel in that moment.
And I think to talk a little bit again about veterinarians who are good. Most of them are such good people. I mean, for them
Mhm.
to, I mean, being a veterinarian is a little bit different than being a human doctor because none of our animals or any animals can speak. And
Hmm.
so, and they have to know about all types of animals, right?
Yeah.
So, but I've heard even really good vets. I mean, really good vets. One of the couples that came into the group many years ago had it was a poodle. It was in I think the poodle had won some awards, right, and was on a calendar, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
And the poodle had one of his nails was problematic, and the vet they went to was a wonderful vet. I mean, I've known him, for a period of time, and he kept saying, "Well, maybe it's allergies," and unfortunately, it just wasn't going away. And by the time that he did X-rays, it was cancer, and it had spread through the dog's body, and the dog had died. So,
Wow.
I I don't know I mean, how do we know that, right? They don't know
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah.
And even any wonderful vet or when any human doctor can
Yeah.
make those same
Yeah.
kind of issues.
Yep.
So, I mean, I don't know if that means that you want to make sure by, having second opinions at some point in time, but and it obviously it's not anything that a veterinarian would want to have happen. So, and he said, "I've never seen this before," right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. It's interesting when you hear that. I've heard that once myself. I've never heard this before. I've never seen this before. And it makes you realize that there's just so much that's possible that might be outside the realm of even a very experienced clinician's
yeah.
experience. And it's startling when you hear that. It's startling.
But it does happen. And so I mean, all we can do, and like Deb was a wonderful Tessa mom, and all we can say is we hope her husband's okay, and we
Mhm.
hope that they are respectful of each other's grief, and we thank Deb for her story.
We sure do. Thank you so much for that. And we do have a comment from Gan Gang, if I'm saying that right. I feel for all who have lost a fur baby. So
Yes,
just kind of a sweet message there.
sweet message.
So we'll move on to Michelle. And Michelle is talking about the loss of her dog, Pippa. And she writes, Dear Ken and Nancy, my dog Pippa passed away Father's Day 2022. So again, very, very recent, fairly recently,
Yeah,
from
June.
2 or 3 months, from a year-long journey with a rare aggressive cancer treated with amputation and chemotherapy. I found your podcast about 3 weeks after her transition, and it has been my mental and emotional salvation. Now that it's been about 2 months since her passing, I find my grieving process changing and different thoughts arising. And so she gives us kind of a perspective on
Mhm.
how grief has changed. It's really thoughtful of her to do this. So she says the sharp, jagged edges of painful memories are dulling, but so are the details of our daily lives and the good memories. That makes me sad and guilty, like I am betraying her
Mhm.
or not remembering in vivid detail the good and healthy times. Thank goodness we have loads of pictures and videos over the 7 years she was with us to remind me. But even then, I feel like I should remember more than I do without being prompted by photos and videos. And then the second point she makes is we have slowly donated, thrown away, or put away her possessions over the past 2 months. Besides her cremains, collars, paw print, fur clipping, and a photo, the only other items I have out are her most recent toy that we got her about a week and a half before she passed, and her favorite blanket. I sleep with her toy
Mhm. And
or
her
blanket almost every night because I can hold them. They're soft and they smell like her.
Mhm.
The physical nature of these items brings me much comfort. I'm not sure if and when I will reach a point where I no longer need them. People, including my husband, have stopped asking how I'm doing. This is her third point. People, including my husband, have stopped asking how I'm doing, and I've stopped bringing the subject up. My husband and I have very different grieving styles, and we respect each other's processes. However, given our different grieving styles, I keep my thoughts to myself and take self care measures such as journaling, walks in
good.
nature, etc.
Nice.
But I do wish I had someone I could regularly talk to whose grieving style is more in line with mine. Thank you for the time, effort, and care you put into the podcast. Sending you both and all the listeners much love, peace, and comfort. So,
Very good points here, right?
very good
Again,
points.
as
Very
the
good.
last point as with Deb, the different grieving styles of the couple, right?
Yeah. Now, one of the things she says, which I think is really interesting, and it harkens to something that it's important for all people in intimate partnerships to understand that we cannot be everything that our partner needs.
Mm-mm.
That
Never.
we just can't be. And so it's very wise to say my partner's style is different than mine, so I have to find ways of soothing and caring for myself that are outside of our relationship. And so she talks about things like walking in nature, or
Yep.
sometimes it'll be listening to music. She says she'd like to talk to other people who are in a
Similar.
similar situation. So she's the kind of person who a group might be very helpful for, or just an online database where there's a sharing of stories and information.
Hmm.
This podcast is an example. The Zoom group that I facilitate with
Right.
Dakin might be something that would be helpful for her. And that's just really a wise thing for everybody to understand, even when you're not dealing with grief, to understand that we can't be everything
No.
our partner needs. We just can't be. And
No, we're very individual people.
if we
Hmm.
try to be, we're gonna probably encounter some partnership difficulties.
And interestingly enough, what she also talked about, which we don't talk about so often, is what to do with the things.
Yeah, yeah,
So some people get rid of their all of the possessions, the the animals' toys and their food and their beds and bowls, all that pretty quickly. Although we have seen that after a while, that people get really sad about that because in the context of grief, they just want it gone, and then they kind of regret it.
yeah,
However, and some people can keep things around for months,
yeah,
years,
yeah,
right?
yep,
So it's a matter of individual, you know, uh, perspective, and that's okay. It's okay how anybody wants to do. If they
yep,
want to hold on to certain things and not things, we've had a lot of people, who can't even look at photographs for a period
yeah,
of time. They
yeah,
just won't do it.
yep.
And then all of a sudden they're able to do that.
One of the things that people can do is if they feel compelled to get rid of things, sometimes this is a very good idea to just put them in a box
Hmm. Put them away.
somewhere out of sight, because as you said, you may want to revisit that decision. You may want to come back and look at those items. I can tell you, we have a little gate that goes. It's a little hard to describe, but when you come in our door with our Chihuahuas, they were so little that we didn't want them to have access to the door, because, in fact, one of them, we're not sure exactly how this happened, but she got hurt because her foot
Got caught.
got caught under the door. So we had this little gate that made it so when you come in, you first have to close the door and then open this little child gate to get in. And when Abigail died, I came home immediately and removed that gate and just took it
Hmm.
apart. Like, took the screws off the wall and took it apart, put it away. So now we have two two new
Now
puppies,
we have two new dogs.
and it immediately went back up. So now it's back in place because it serves a good purpose.
On purpose.
But it was just this impulse.
Mhm.
I can't look at that because that reminds me of my
Yeah,
chihuahuas,
Abigail
and
and
I put it
Isabel.
downstairs for a while. Another thing I wanted to say about what we heard from Michelle is that she feels like she doesn't have access to these positive memories. And what I've seen and what I've experienced as well, what I've seen in conversations with in a clinical setting and also just for myself, is that oftentimes when grief is fresh, we can't remember all the positive
No.
stuff. It's just totally blocked out by the very painful settling recollections about what's just happened. And so, in corresponding with Michelle, I let her know. I said, I'm thinking that probably over time you'll be able
Those
to gather
memories will come back.
those memories will become more accessible, and that's something to keep in mind. Like you're not really going to lose as much as it might feel like you've lost of those kind of positive recollections when the loss happens, because you are so overwhelmed
With
with
grief.
the experience and the images connected to the loss.
And that is definitely what happens, especially at the end. So the images that someone has at death
Yeah.
is really what carries with you for a period of time. The other thing that people can do, though, is if they feel that they will lose it, is to write the memories they remember
Yeah.
down,
Yeah. Write
right?
it all
So
down.
that you can do a little book,
Yep.
whatever comes up, and that could be forever, right? You would have that book to look back at all of the wonderful things that you remember about your dog or cat, whatever animal that is.
Yeah.
So, and that also gives you the opportunity to kind of work through some grieving and to also write it, right? So it's a ritual that you're
Yep.
doing something.
Yep. Yep. So I'll tell you before we close, we did a ritual on August 23rd, which was the anniversary of Abigail's death last year.
Mhm.
So my husband and I sat down. I have a big candle, and I had 6 votive candles. And I lit the big candle, and that was for life. That's for the spirit of everything. And then each of the little candles I lit, one for Isabel, Abigail, Jack, and Lily, our 4 dogs who are gone, and then one for Henry and Diana, my 2 cats,
Yeah.
who and I let the photo candles burn until they went out, and
Mhm.
then put the big candle out eventually. But the ritual was really good for
Rituals are
me, good
important.
for Tim. It was more important for me than him, but
It's okay. Tim was there with
but
you.
he was there.
No, rituals are always very important. And it doesn't matter how many times you do them, and it
Yeah,
doesn't matter for how long you do them.
yeah,
It brings that relationship back, and it brings, all of those memories back.
yeah. It's
And
an honoring too. It's like
yes,
just to honor the relationships that we had, and to realize that we'll hold on to them. We'll hold on to
yeah,
them.
they're always with us, but it brings it a little more into the center when we do those things,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Which is really helpful. And these were good questions that Michelle
yeah.
had, and we really
Absolutely.
appreciate
Yep,
her email
yep.
to us.
So we thank Michelle and Deb,
Yep.
and we'll have another conversation next week, Nancy.
We certainly will.
All right. Take care. Bye
Take
bye.
care.